Books presents an unabridged recording of Destiny of the Mountain Man by William W. Johnstone and Fred Austin, narrated by George Guidell. This book is copyrighted 2005 by William W. Johnstone. This recording is copyrighted 2006 by Recorded Books. In the bush country of South Texas, Captain Richard King built a sprawling ranch called Santa Gertrudis. But at the end of the Civil War, a sadistic killer burned it to the ground and slaughtered everyone in it. Now, 15 years later, King's land is about to run with blood once more. And now, Destiny of the Mountain Man.
Prologue. 1870. The Golden Nugget Saloon in Pueblo, Colorado Territory, was already a beehive of activity, even though the regulator clock sitting against the back wall indicated that it was just after 12 o'clock in the afternoon. A man with a 2-day growth of beard and red-rimmed eyes was plinking away on a piano in the corner of the room, while a glass of warm beer, its head gone, sat beside him. 2 cowboys stood at the bar, engaged in a vociferous discussion as to the relative merits of rye versus bourbon. One of them punctuated his argument by expectorating a large quid of tobacco into a nearby spittoon, making it ring with the impact. A soiled dove, whose profession had already caused dissipation beyond her years, adjusted her low-cut evening gown as she made the rounds of the tables, letting the customers know by flirtatious smiles and intimate touches that she was available for business. She was trying to sing in tune with the piano, but was failing miserably. All sound and activity stopped, however, when 2 men slapped the bat wings open, stepped into the saloon, and crossed over to the bar. Everyone in the place paused and stared at the pair as they made their way across the room. They looked like perfect examples of what life in the mountains would do to anyone crazy enough or antisocial enough to endure it. The older of the 2 had fought in the Battle of New Orleans as a 14-year-old boy. The younger of the 2 was a boy during the Civil War, which had been over but 5 years. Despite their age differences, there was a strong similarity between them. Both were dressed in buckskins that were almost black with accumulated trail dust and dirt and grime, and both had full beards and long, unkempt hair that hung down almost to their shoulders. The older man's hair was white, while the younger man's hair was the color of dark smoke. It was obvious from their appearance and smell that they'd been up in the high country for some time without benefit of a bath. They belonged to that most reclusive of breeds, mountain men. But it wasn't the fact that they were mountain men that caused everyone in the Golden Nugget Saloon to stop what they were doing and stare. Mountain men weren't all that rare in this part of Colorado Territory, especially in winter, when storms would sometimes drift the snow deep enough to drive even those hardy souls down to civilization. What caught everyone's attention was the fact that they were armed to the teeth. The old man was carrying what looked to be a Sharp's Big 50 cradled in his arms, and a Navy Colt 37 stuck down in his belt. The younger one had enough weapons to start a war. A Navy Colt was tied low on his thigh in a right-hand rig. A matching Colt was butt forward in a high holster on his left hip, and a 12-inch long Bowie knife rested in a scabbard in the middle of his back. A Henry repeating rifle was slung across his shoulders to complete the picture. The young man's eyes were as hard and uncompromising as new ice on a pond, while the older man's expression was one of whimsy, as if he'd seen just about all that was worth seeing in his many years, and saw little now that would impress him. When the older man set his rifle down and they both leaned on the bar, all but one of the saloon customers went back to what they'd been doing, ignoring the 2 odd-looking newcomers. One of the customers, however, Bradford Preston, continued to stare at the 2. Though it was still early in the day, Preston had already had more than enough to drink. If you asked, Preston would call himself a cowboy. though he found work only sporadically due to his temper, hard-headedness, and the fact that not many cattlemen trusted him. It had never been proven, but there were those who suspected that Preston would sometimes support himself by cutting out a few head of cattle, butchering them, then selling the meat and the hide. Preston drained his glass and slammed it down on the table, nodding his head at one of the others sitting with him to refill it from the almost empty bottle on the table. "Damn, Johnny," Preston said in a loud, grating voice.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.